G'day guys, Seuss is back in an episode, but that doesn't matter because we had the one and only Dr Mohammed Awad, a renowned neurosurgeon who speaks all things on his experience becoming a doctor, specifically a neurosurgeon. He speaks about the importance of soft skills such as resilience, hard work, and we also touched on his recent humanitarian work over in Gaza. An episode not to be missed. You guys know the drill. We'll just get right into it.
And I started applying to the Royal Air Force, and then, my dad was like, yeah, it's all good, whatever. Like, he thinking, no, this guy ain't going to get in, But I was quite fit back then. I know you can't see that now, but I was quite fit and healthy. And, they test your aptitude and your skill and your speed and how quick you can think and the whole lot. Then my dad sat me down and was like, whoa, hold on a minute. Have you thought about this? And I'm like, what do you mean, Daddy? I'm going to be a pilot. I'm going to be so cool. And, what if the UK go to war with Egypt? That's your people. You're Egyptian. Oh my God, this was a terrible time, etc. And, my daughter died or, whatever it may be. When you read those things, you process it and you process an emotional content with it. But if you're if you're getting everything through Chatgpt, you'll miss that. And so you don't learn to emotionally process as well. So, we're going to end up with a whole bunch of kids who just can't think, can't even emotionally, the EQ factor will go. So there'll be so much, not just knowledge and tasks that we'll be missing, but also like emotional ability to deal with your fellow brother and sister in the community. And that's crucial. He'd come down, taken for, and he was a younger guy, I don't know, maybe early 30s from memory, something like that, quite young. And he had a crutch. He was walking with a crutch, and he had a shrapnel injury to his spine. So he's got these little bullets in his spine, and he was walking, but obviously walking with a crutch, and he had some bladder disturbances, and some of the stuff down below wasn't functioning very well, etc. And obviously his leg wasn't working very well. That's why he was using the crutch. And he'd come to ask if there's something I could do to make that better for him. Can I make his situation any better? And in the process of just talking, like, it was only when I almost forced it out of him, I was trying to say, look, you're not bad, you're pretty functioning, and I don't think I can make you any better than you are, and damage is kind of done pretty good, like, what how do you want me to make you any better than you are? Like, you're walking, you're still able to use the toilet, you're okay, like, how do you want me to make you better? And then it was only when I pushed him, he said,
FairDinkum.
First of all, welcome to the episode, Dr Mohammed Awad. It's
Thank
a
you.
pleasure to have you on.
Pleasure to be here.
We'll start the episode off here. I listened to one of your previous podcasts you've done, and you said intelligence only gets you so far. And I want to touch on your career, being a neurosurgeon, a doctor, starting up in the UK, moving to Australia. So could you just enlighten us about hard work and dedication? And what does that mean to you?
All right. I guess the first thing I should say is, I was never like the smartest kid in the school. Not by any means. Not by any means. Look, I wasn't silly. I wasn't stupid. But like I say, wasn't the brightest by any means. I think what I've learned now, to get through life, you have to have a combination of a few things. One, you do have to have obviously some intelligence, just some common sense and intelligence. And I think you also need a good level of EQ, social intelligence. Is really crucial. And I've learned that over the last, 20, 30 years of my adult life, sort of growing up, emotional intelligence is crucial. The third thing you need, of course, is hard work. So you can be as intelligent as you like. You can have the most emotional intelligence as you like. But if you're sat on the couch, excuse the pun, but if you're sat on the couch and doing nothing at all, it's not going to get you anywhere. You're only going to get so far. Now, of course, there are exceptions in the world. You get those people who make a lot of money out of social media. But those guys who are like gaming on a couch or whatever, or they sit there and they start selling something through their phones, and they do amazingly well. But those guys are really few and far between. And so you can't, it's like saying I want to be an international soccer player. I'm going to be the next Ronaldo. Well, the chances of that, you're more likely to win the lotto if you play the lotto. And it's the same principle with getting somewhere in life. The chances of you getting anywhere without hard work is low. You've got to put the hard yards in. Now, I've been screaming about this for a while now to schools, and I go and do lectures at schools to high school kids. And the reason for that is because I can see generations are changing. Just look at a couple of generations up. The generation up from me, I'm probably the generation older from you guys, the one older than me, so my parents, etc. Those guys grafted. Do you have that word in Australia?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those guys grafted hard. Like they really put the hard yards in. You know, they had the sweat on their backs. They were carrying. They were really grafting to get somewhere in life. And that sort of hard working generation that went on for generations before. But as we've come into more modern generations, and the reason for that is technology. Technology's changed us. We can do so much now. You know, think about what you had 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. If you wanted to film, you had to have a video camera on you.
Right.
If you wanted to take a picture, you had to have an actual photo, you know, a camera. If you wanted to send a fax, you needed a fax machine. If you want an email, you needed a desktop computer. You've got all that on one little device that sits in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you don't need to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's made us all lazy. The other thing that's interesting is as a surgeon, we're seeing a lot more people now with neck problems. Young people. Why? Because they're like this all the time. Everyone's down like this, flex their neck all the time. So everyone's getting like hurt necks and, you know, disc prolapses in the necks, etc. So we need to go back to old school, hard grind, work hard. I'm not saying we need to go and plow the fields, but you know, we need to be putting in a bit of backbone into what we do to get where we want to get to. Again, one last thing I would say about that is the reason why I'm also passionate about that is because I see so many intelligent people who just don't put the time in. They could be so much more than they are. You know, you go to like a fast food store and you talk to somebody and you know, somebody's serving you and you're like, you sound pretty smart. And they're like, oh yeah, you know, actually I did this and this. And you're like, you're really smart. Why are you here? Oh, you know, I just didn't quite make the grades. I was messing around or whatever. You could have been a lawyer. You could have been a doctor. You could have been anything, an engineer.
Could have done something.
Yeah. I mean, if that's the best you can do, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in working anywhere. You know, there's no shame in cleaning the floors. No shame. Own it if that's what you're going to do. But if you could be so much more and you haven't achieved what you wanted to do because you didn't put the hard work in, that's a shame.
Being ignorant to your potential, yeah.
That's a shame.
So going back to, let's just say, young Mohammed back in the UK, did you always set out to do medicine? How was that journey?
I was a rebel, man.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't that bad. Look, I was a little bit naughty, like any kid, but nothing more than ordinary. I reckon for me, it probably hit me around maybe end of primary school, going into secondary school. I was like, I think I want to be a doctor. Actually, that's not true. I wanted to be a doctor or an airline pilot.
Okay. Which one was A? Which one was B? Doctor was
airline,
A?
No.
Okay.
No, I wanted to be an airline pilot, A. And then, of course, you know, you start to watch Top Gun and all that. And then I'm like, okay, well, actually, I want to be a fighter pilot. You know, and I'm like, yeah, man, I'd look good in that outfit.
Yeah.
So actually, I started to pursue that. And I went to the Royal Air Force. This is in the UK. And I started applying to the Royal Air Force. And then, you know, my dad was like, yeah, it's all good, whatever. Like, he thinking that this guy ain't going to get in, you know. But I was quite fit back then. I know you can't see that now, but I was quite fit and healthy. And, you know, they test your aptitude and your skill and your speed and how quick you can think and the whole lot. And so, like, when you start going through all the different stages and it starts to get more serious, then my dad sat me down and was like, whoa, hold on a minute. Have you thought about this? And I'm like, what do you mean, Daddy? I'm going to be a pilot. I'm going to be so cool. And he's like, you know, what if the UK go to war with Egypt? That's your people. You're Egyptian. That's where I'm born. That's where your mother was born. You're Egyptian. What are you going to do? You're going to go bomb your own people with a fighter plane? I'm like, Dad, it's not going to come to that, man. Why would Egypt, you know, why would they fight with you? He goes, look, it happens. No one thought that X country would fight another X country, but they do. And, you know, it happens. And so what are you going to do? And then, you know, it hits you at that point and you go, he's right. And I'm like, so I pulled out and then I was like, oh, I guess I'll be a doctor.
Yeah.
Plan B, yeah.
So I was like, oh, gosh.
The low of the two.
Yeah, whatever. So that's what I did. So then I just pursued medicine. And the funny thing was that I always wanted to be a neurosurgeon.
Specifically?
Yeah, from when I was quite young. And from high school, actually. From
what
high
drew
school.
you towards neurosurgery?
In all honesty, it was probably my brother-in-law. So my second oldest sister married a neurosurgeon. Yeah. Egyptian trained from Al-Azhar University in Cairo. And he came and worked a bit in the UK and stuff like that and worked for quite a while in Wales in the UK and then went on to Saudi Arabia. And anyway, and I could see this guy's lifestyle and I was like, actually, I want to be a neurosurgeon because, like, you know, it's considered the creme de la creme of medicine. It's the hardest. I was always good with my hands. You know, I'm the kind of guy who used to fix radios, and you know, my dad's electric window breaks in his car. I'd take the door apart, fix it. You know, I was always good with my hands. So I loved using my hands. I like using my brain. I like, you know, I like a challenge. And so I thought, well, there's nothing more challenging than neurosurgery. So I pursued it.
I'd love to ask a lot more about just the whole field of neurosurgery, because I feel like it's so complex. And from my understanding, I watched a podcast that you had with the Safi brothers, and you were speaking about how the nervous system, we don't even know everything about it yet.
No, we don't.
Subhanallah. So what intrigues you the most about neurosurgery? What one thing had stood out the most to you when you were going through your studies or through surgeries, or something that you were looking at? What intrigued you the most about the brain?
Oh, wow. Lots of things. I mean, you can imagine it's a whole universe of knowledge, information, structure. It's just unbelievable. I guess one of the earliest things that intrigued me was just how little of the brain we actually need to function. So, you know, we can take away a whole lobe. You're familiar with the brain, of course. There's lobes: frontal lobe, parietal, temporal, etc. And, you know, I started seeing these operations very early on where they would take away a whole lobe of a patient because there was a tumor there, or because it was causing epilepsy or seizures or whatever. But they take away this whole chunk of the brain, and the patient woke up and they were exactly the same, normal, talking, and the same person, you know, character, the same, nothing's changed. And you're like, so what was that part of the brain doing? You know? And then it makes you wonder, your brain goes, you know, you start to think, you're like, are we not opening that potential? Like, is there, I mean, that brain, you know, Allah created us for a reason. He's not going to create something that's in excess or, you know, ridiculously in excess. So that part of the brain, maybe it has a function more than we know yet, more than we understand. There's also something called plasticity, which means that, you know, that part of the brain may have been doing something, and when something happens to it, another part of the brain takes over. But still, you know, there's definitely a lot of the brain that we don't understand purely what it does, or we don't understand why you can take it away and, you know, and you're completely normal, what you're functioning. So yeah, there was just so much that intrigues you. And then the more you understand about the intricacies of like the chemistry of the brain, and how the neural networks work, and how this sends a signal to there and back, and why, you know, you can look at somebody and reach out and touch and feel, and, you know, all that stuff. And you go, subhanAllah, there's no way you can't believe in God. No way. Because there's nothing on this planet that can come close to, and we create fast cars and airplanes and rockets as humans, but we can't create anything like the human body. No chance.
The complexities of it.
No chance.
Especially because we're in like an era of artificial intelligence. So everyone's talking about how like amazing a creation AI is, and then like we forget that like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed us with something even more complex.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Even AI to this, you know, to where it is at the moment, it still can't quite do what the human brain can do, obviously. No, like, it's very, very good. It's amazing. And it's, you know, but it's a learnt concept. That's what AI is. You've got to feed it information. It's a learned concept. And then it sort of says, okay, well, this is the best of that. You know, the human brain can do different things to that AI can't do. Yes, we can learn as well. Of course we can learn. And that's how we know to live life, because it's learned behavior. I know over time that I can't sit here naked in this room because that's not the right thing to do. It's learned behavior. You know, and AI is just learned behavior, but we can do other things. We can process. And the biggest thing is emotional intelligence.
Biggest part,
If you start crying now and you tell me, I don't know, you know, your grandfather passed away, I know to put my arm around you and give you a hug. That comes, you know, you can't teach a computer to do that.
That's true.
I mean, you can, but it's not. It also, there's also that special thing inside a human. So if I did put my arm around you, I can train a robot to do that, but it's not the same. When I put my arm around you, there's an inherent thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us that means that you can feel that I am connected to you and I'm feeling your pain. And I'm giving you that hug because I want to embrace you as a brother, as another human being. as a compassionate person to say, I feel your pain and I want to share that pain with you. You will never get that from a piece of metal.
Never. Yeah.
Especially because you have to program it to do it. So it's like, I asked you for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's totally, yeah. You know, it's like you know, your wife when she says, "Oh, you never buy me flowers," and next day you rock up with flowers. Well, I've just told you to give me the flowers. That's not from you, man. That's the most useless set of flowers you're gonna give me.
Exactly.
You know, it's the same principle.
But yeah, so when I think about it, I always like reflect on how we didn't grow up with these things. So we know what it was like before social media. We're in like that middle phase where we didn't have social media growing up. We didn't have AI growing up. Like, but there's a new generation of kids who are growing up in both worlds. Like they're growing up with the capacity to be able to do everything that we are doing right now and learning as adults, but they probably will be a lot more reliant upon it than we are. So we've been able to think without it because we've had to, but they probably will grow up in an era where they don't have to think.
I know, and it's actually scary. It's really scary, like the whole Chatgpt thing, you know, and they say, don't do your homework with Chatgpt, but a lot of kids will, and they'll just run their whole life with Chatgpt, and it's like, but you've not had a chance to think about that and research that piece of, and the reason why you've been given that, you know, history homework on the history of Australia is that so you can understand and you can process that and you can understand, okay, so, you know, this white man came from the UK and landed here, and okay, how did that look like and what did that look like? Oh, there's people already here, and you process that information in your brain. And you have emotions around that as well, and then you make a decision of how you feel about that. You know, that's just one small factor, you know, and yet though, if I say, you know, tell me about the history of Australia, and I go, Chatgpt, tell me what happened here. You know, this guy came, Captain Cook, and this whole thing's, and I hand it to you.
Yeah, I see it firsthand because I'm a school teacher and I speak to the other teachers about the classes. They have essays to do and they're relying on ChatGPT. Some of the kids even talk to me, like I was at camp the other week, and they'll talk to me like, "Mister, I just use ChatGPT. It's so much easier. I can tell them that I'll type it as like year 7 student." And like I didn't know what to say, to be honest, because I've never seen the result. But then I think also they'll probably lack more with the communication skills. Like you said, when you have to explain the history of Australia to a person right in front of them without a screen, then you're going to struggle because you can't think for yourself. You
can't think for yourself. You haven't learned the art of research, how to actually get different sources and learn about it. You know, you're just ChatGPT is getting its sources from the internet. Sure, it's getting various sources and it tends to give you both views, etc. I appreciate that, but it's not the same as you researching, investigating, processing that information. I just hand it to you as a school teacher. I've got my marks. And, you know, if you then sat me down 2 weeks later and go, tell me about it, I'll be like, oh, well, just what I quickly read from ChatGPT. There was this guy and blah, blah, blah. And that was it, you know. So it's scary. I
always used to say that as well because I was like, oh, what did school ever teach me? You know, like going out into real life or something like that, there was no accounting. There was no like how do you build a house or like real life skills that we always talk about, you know. But one of the biggest things is like sorting out through information, you know, critical thinking, organizing,
absolutely,
all those like little things that later on, if you're just on your own, like on the internet, you can sort of come to your own sort of like decision, you know.
Yeah, there's so much I think that we are losing in humanity over time. That's a real shame. You know, the art of research, the art of you know, looking through books and learning how to, you know, process and pick up bits of information that are relevant and just reading a book. You know, there's just so much and you know, real-time socializing. This just sitting here and talking to people, and now, you know, now it's all over the you know, all over the all over the internet.
That's what you were saying before, the whole neck thing and how the whole hard work conversation. It's like the biggest problem nowadays is like too much information. You know, because now if you just put a quick, Google was already a lot back in the day, you know, but now it's like you open ChatGPT and then it's like it gives you all these like different options and stuff like that. And then now ChatGPT is getting to the point, or AI is like it can create images for you. So the aspect of creativity is now taken out of like sort of the element, you know.
That's right. Yeah.
And then that breeds that whole laziness, the lack of hard work, and
of course, it's all just done for you. It's and that the laziness factor. You know, we might not think about it as something major at the moment. I promise you, it's going to be a disease, like in itself. It's a real major problem. You know, not motivating somebody to get up and to work and to clean your house and to take out your rubbish, whatever, and just to work and study and make money. And there's no motivation.
Yeah.
Why? I can just do it all by this and that, and don't worry about the rest. And you lose that drive. It's crazy.
As a father, do you think about it? Because obviously you got kids and whatnot, and that this younger generation will grow up in that, like, because Sus was saying before, he made a good point. Like, even with us with uni, we didn't grow up with AI, and we had Google and stuff like that. And the generation before probably had to go to the library and read things from
That's
books
right.
encyclopedias and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm that generation.
Yeah, but then this day and age, and like going back to the whole thing, you being a father, it's like, how can I navigate this as a parent? Teaching him these skills and.
Yeah, look, I'm a big believer in, we should be teaching those old-fashioned skills. Okay, I'm going to take this to an example in surgery.
Okay.
So in surgery now, we have lots of clever machines that help us do things like placing screws in certain places in the spine, or placing like a little catheter into the brain, whatever it may be. And then, like I said, we have all these clever machines, $1 million machines that help you do it, robotic surgery, etc. The problem is, if that machine breaks down, or something happens and you've got no social media anymore, no electricity anymore, no robotics, no whatever, the old-fashioned surgeons who've been taught to operate the old-fashioned way and still perform that particular procedure will be fine. Those people who've just been taught to use all the new clever, machines and robots and whatever, those things break down, they're going to be like, I'm out. Or that patient's on the table now, that patient needs their operation doing it. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to have to cancel it and come back another day. So, and it's the same with everything else in life. We need to be taught to do things the proper way, the old-fashioned way. And it's okay if you then use the Chatgpt, but know how to do it the other way. Know how to do it the original way, the authentic way of research and putting in a bit of hard yards and labor. You should learn that, because it also instills something into you in terms of, the hard graft.
It's me and one of my mates were having a conversation about, like, literally what careers in this universe are AI proof. Like, what career can you take that doesn't get replaced by AI? And like, he was talking about how the way his brother-in-law is a doctor, and he's like, his brother-in-law is even scared, because he's like, sometimes the patient comes in and I ask ChatGPT, what's going on here? What's the diagnosis? So he's like, will there ever come to a point where it's like everything is just replaced? Because then we got engineers that can be replaced, doctors that can be replaced, lawyers that can be replaced, judges even. What I mean? It's like, where does it stop?
Yeah, it's scary, and I think that is the other problem with technology advancing so fast, is that we're going to end up with a workforce that's unemployed. We're going to end up with people who, I mean, yes, it creates other jobs as well. I appreciate that. But, you take a factory that makes cars, Toyota in Japan. Yeah. Go back to Toyota when they were making cars in the 70s. They had loads of people employed and, intricate hand building, etc., etc. You go and have a look at the factory that now. It's all machines and AI, and this goes into here and there. And yes, you still have people that control that. Yeah. But that will only advance and get better, and so you'll need less and less people to control these machines, and so you'll have this factory that's knocking out 1,000 cars a day, and there'll be like 5 people controlling the whole thing, rather than 5,000 people controlling the whole thing. Where are all these people going to get jobs?
It's true.
So it is a worry.
In California, China nowadays, like even Uber drivers.
Detroit, bro. Yeah.
Okay, go Detroit.
So in Detroit, how the way they were actually they were known to be the motor city, yeah. And then all of a sudden, like, they replaced everybody. I think they moved all of the stuff to China, and then the whole economy in that one city just collapsed.
Oh wow!
And it's known to be like where Eminem is from?
Yeah.
Let's talk about 8 Mile or whatever. In the actual movie, they show how much of a ghost town it is, because it was so reliant upon one industry. So if you can see it from like that perspective, it's like, okay, sure, robots are good and AI and efficiency and so on and so forth, but like look at the effects of it, and you can already see it through one industry. So,
no, that's big facts as well. You see, even in China nowadays, Uber drivers, they were the thing in the last 5 years or something like that, before taxis and whatnot. They're gone. self-driving cars taking
Oh,
from
yeah.
point A to point B.
Oh yeah, self-driving cars is massive now. You see them in America everywhere, and like you say in Asia, and that will only increase. There goes your taxi driver jobs.
Yeah, very important.
All the more reason to get an education, everybody. There'll be no taxi drivers left.
Sure.
No, 100%. I wanted to ask about, so obviously in a human body, you hear a lot from doctors that if you don't use it, you lose it, basically. So now AI kind of steps in and it takes all the heavy lifting off the brain to do with research and, using certain parts or pathways in your brain. What effects can you see, or what effects do you predict could happen to people who overly rely upon these kind of like resources?
It's quite simple. You won't learn to do the things that you need to learn to do, like all the stuff we spoke about, the research, etc., using your brain, processing of information, and that can manifest not just in terms of actual information that you're processing for a task, for example, but also emotional processing. Because I'm so used to putting everything through Chatgpt, words come with emotions behind them. And sometimes you won't appreciate that if they've come through a different method, because you've not researched it yourself, you've not felt it, you've not felt what that writer's writing, that person who's writing about that emotion. Oh my God, this was a terrible time, etc. And, my daughter died, or, whatever it may be. When you read those things, you process it and you process an emotional content with it. But if you're getting everything through ChatGPT, you'll miss that. And so you don't learn to emotionally process as well. So, we're going to end up with a whole bunch of kids who just can't think, can't even emotionally, the EQ factor will go. So there'll be so much that we just, so much, not just knowledge and tasks that we're missing, but also like emotional ability to deal with your fellow brother and sister in the community. And that's crucial, because that now, think about the knock-on effect of that. You lose intelligence, you're losing emotional intelligence, suicide rates go up, depression goes up because no one's there to help you, no one understands or cares about what your problem is. It's just the knock-on effect is so vast, and I don't think we can see it. But it's, we're almost heading for Armageddon, of the human race because of this problem. I mean, I think that's a real problem. Everyone's going to be sat in their houses, working from home, computer, your next door neighbor's crying because they're in pain. Not my problem. I don't even know what that means.
Ask ChatGPT to help.
Yeah, exactly. ChatGPT, what do I tell the neighbor? Buy him a packet of biscuits, knock on the door, biscuits outside the door, whatever. It's going to be insane.
It's almost like COVID-19 taught us all of this, We had a glimpse of it.
That didn't help either.
It didn't help,
That really didn't help either. Because the whole world lived that future of what it would be like to be almost solo and, not talk to your fellow brother and sister because you can't. And, that really instilled a big problem in a lot of people. They got used to that, and they could see what it meant, and they were like, well, okay, I could live like this.
Exactly. If anything, it accelerated it, because before it was still like somewhat of a foreign concept, the fact that people used to go out and eat their food. Now it became normal to not even leave your house and just DoorDash everything. And like that social component.
Exactly.
Of things,
Everyone's become lazy now. I can just work from home. I can do this from home. Oh, look, it works. I can just get on my laptop. Oh, I could just order in. I don't even have to get out of the house. Food's actually pretty cheap on Uber Eats. No problem. And if I join Uber Eats One, I get free delivery. Oh, no problem.
Exactly.
We're creating a lazy world. We're really creating a lazy world.
Even from like the Islamic lens, if you think about it, like when like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam ever mentioned laziness and procrastination, it's always in a negative term. It's like there's du'as to ask Allah to protect us from those two things. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, like, a lot of people will categorize laziness as something different to the next person, but it's like, within yourself when you're actually not exhausting all your measures, or you're not actually putting in any effort. Subhanallah.
But laziness, this whole problem we're talking about, the laziness, the AI coming in, all this problem, it's a first world problem. Think about it.
Definitely.
This doesn't happen in third world countries.
Yeah, that's true.
You go to China now, these guys are still working like machines like they were 20, 30 years ago. They're machines. You know, the humans. They're onto it. You know, in Asia, the same. I'll tell you a story. So I alhamdulillah, I've been very fortunate to help some charities and some orphanages in Indonesia, in an island called Batam Island. It's just south of Singapore. And I've been helping them for some time now. And they said, we'd love you to come visit. You know, alhamdulillah, you help us. And you said, we want you to come and see these orphans. So I did. And I went to one of the orphanages and they were showing me around, etc. And then I was like, tell me about how the day of these kids, like what does their day look like? If I told you, you would never believe me. So these kids are tiny. We're talking anything from, 3, 4 years old through to sort of 12, 13 years old. So, primary school age kids, but tiny kids. Their day consists of waking up for Fajr. They wake them up, make sure they pray Fajr, which is amazing. Okay. So let's go from there. So straight after Fajr, education starts. So at 5:36, they start schooling. And that's education goes through till, I think it was 3 or something like 2:33 in the afternoon, straight through. Obviously with a lunch break and stuff. They break for prayers, of course. They break for Dhuhr, Asr. And then after Asr prayer, they get a half an hour break to exercise and whatever, or an hour break, I think it was. I can't remember. A short break. And then they go and do Quran classes and learn Arabic and Quran classes straight through to like Isha, with a break from Maghrib to Isha. All right. And then these kids are then going to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, having been educated since 6 a.m. in the morning all day till 10 o'clock at night. Then they go to sleep at 10:30 at night on the floor. They don't have beds. They sleep on a hard floor. Alhamdulillah, we managed to buy some mattresses for them. That was fortunate. But anyway, they sleep on the floor and then they wake them up for night prayers. So they wake them up at 2:30, couple of night prayers. They can go back to sleep a little bit longer, then they wake up for Fajr again. And that's their routine 7 days a week. Now, you want to talk about grafting? That's grafting. Yeah.
And
that's a proper grind.
How old are they again?
These kids are primary school.
3 to 12.
And they're not going to like wear it as a badge of honor because they just think it's like an everyday
That's
thing.
normal
They're
for
not
them.
saying I'm grafting, I'm doing this
100%. These kids, they don't know any better.
Yeah.
I'm going, oh my God, mashallah, these kids are unbelievable.
We
and
would struggle to do it.
They're like, what?
Yeah.
That's just what we do. That's a graft. And then you see our kids, they can't even make their own beds, whatever. They want to sit there on their social media all day and they can literally sit on their phone like this all day, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. Yeah. No hard graft. Go and get a job. Go and do something. Go and build something. Go and learn how to make something. Go and, do an apprenticeship. Go and sit with someone who's smart, who knows how to do something and learn from them. Just sit next to them. When I was young, there was a mechanic that lived on the end of my street. Yeah. And you know what my playtime was? I used to play on my bike like every other kid and mess around with my friends. But when I had some spare time, I'd just go and sit with the mechanic and I learned how to do stuff with cars. Wow. Why sit there and do nothing? So I learned how to change brakes, oil, spark plugs. I learned how to, what tappets means and, what black smoke means and white smoke means.
But see, that's the thing though. You had the option of, I'll do nothing or this. Whereas they don't even have the option of doing nothing because there's always something to do. And that's even for us, like at our age. There's no such thing as boredom. Yeah. We can just go on our phone. We're waiting in line to get a coffee, check our phone.
But that is a problem. Exactly. Exactly. Take the iPhones and iPads and whatever off people and say you only can use it for, certain times. Yeah. And then they'll start finding something to do. The creative side of you comes out. This is the other problem we're talking about. So creativity. We're losing creativity.
Sure.
We need to get that back.
Because I have a question in terms of creativity and focus. How do you protect your focus as a neurosurgeon? Because I think obviously you have a phone these days. You can easily be scrolling on that all day, being with your kids, whatnot, watching TV. How do you protect your focus to make sure that you're always on it for your job?
It's a bit unfair for me because I don't have time. I'm a busy guy. I wake up in the morning and my day is rammed through till, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. And then sometimes I'm educating, doing GP education sessions or whatever in the evenings. So like 2 or 3 evenings in the week, I'm busy as well. So my time is full. But I would say do the same. Fill your time with something useful. Anything is more useful than scrolling on TikTok. Anything. Go and stand with the builders across the street and watch how they're building that house. I don't know. Just understand how buildings work, or go and sit in a GP practice and say, can I be an observer and learn how you look after people? I don't know. Find something to do. I know. Take your bike apart and put it back together again.
Yeah.
You know, if there's something broken in your house, learn to fix it. You need shelves up, learn to put the shelves up. Watch it on YouTube, do it. Fill your time with useful things. Anything you do that teaches you, educates you, you're benefiting somebody else with, you're benefiting humanity. They're all useful things to do. Sitting there, just going like this on your phone, scrolling, watching, you know, somebody drop a pie in somebody else's face or whatever it may be, is not bloody useful to anybody.
Yeah. You know what, Doc? I wanted to ask you something. And this is probably like a nice little clip for social media, but I wanted to ask a neurosurgeon about brain rot. You ever heard of that concept before?
Yeah, but in what context?
So brain rot is basically videos that have no meaning, no purpose in life, but people just sit there and watch it.
Oh, of course, yes.
They find it funny.
Yes, yes.
So like, for example, it'll just be like some weird clips, videos put together, edits, like somebody, like
people cleaning
yeah,
up
like
walls.
people, like things don't connect. It doesn't make sense, but for some reason it makes somebody laugh or happy.
Yeah.
And it has like that effect on their brain. So, and this is like something we're laughing about because somebody that I know is really addicted to brain rot. And right now they're doing something. There's like a trend on social media where it's like at the end of brain rot, a job application will pop up. So it's like basically go get a job.
Go get a job.
Get the hell off the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Look, I'd love to know that. I mean, we'd have to speak to a psychiatrist or a psychologist about, you know, why people find those things interesting. And I'm not a psychologist. I don't claim to be. But, you know, I think there's something about those things because you don't have to think, because it's mindless, that makes it interesting. So like, for example, you know, I love watching movies. I don't get to do it very frequently, but I love watching movies. Yeah. And there are times when like, I want to watch something that needs a bit more thought. Like, I don't know, Mission Impossible, you know, you have to concentrate. Did he take off the mask? Is he him or her? You got to concentrate, you know? And there are times I'm like, nah, man, I want to watch one of those mindless movies. I just want to sit there and watch like a stupid horror film.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Dumb and Dumber, something stupid or, you know, and so your brain sometimes wants that. It just wants downtime. But some people just take that downtime to another level. And that's what they're doing. It's just complete brain downtime. It's just filling your brain with absolutely useless rubbish. And they're enjoying that because that's what they want. They want useless. They just want nothing. They want their brain to just be nothing.
They're all the time.
Crazy. Like, I get that if you're doing that once, if you're doing it for like an hour a week, I get that. Fine. Everyone deserves a bit of stupid downtime. No problem. But when you're doing it endlessly every day, every evening, and you're missing the opportunity to do something useful, learn the Quran. Read the Quran. Do that for half an hour and then go and do your brain rot for another hour. Sure. You know, like I say, go and learn a skill. Go and tidy up your house. Go and fix up your house. If your dad or your mother are doing something in the house, learn to cook with your mum. Even if you're a guy, so what? You know, that whole thing's gone now. Learn to cook. I had to go to university. I learned to cook. You know, so you learn to do something. It's useful. You don't know when these skills will become useful.
And I think that's the difference between the Indonesian kids, the ones that you saw, and the ones that grew up here, like in Australia or whatnot. Because from a young age, their default, their baseline is brain rot. So then as they get older, the whole component of thinking, and then you couple that with what? AI, Google, things being done for you. And then on top of that, I guess parenting is another big factor as well, you know, because in today's day, whatever inflation, whatnot, if parents are working constantly, who's going to fill their time? You know, who's going to give them that sort of...
That is a problem. That is a problem. Yeah. But, you know, when people get to a certain age, when you're 12 years plus, when you're, you know, high school plus, you have got that intelligence to go, okay, I know what I need to do here. Like, you know, I've got, you know, serendipity. I've got 2 roads I can go down. I can sit around, do the brain rot thing, not worry about it. And I know that the best I'll be is mundane. Working in McDonald's, I don't know, JB, you know, just a very simple job. And that's your job for life. Again, nothing wrong with that if that's the best you can be. Nothing wrong with that. But if you could have been that person where if you worked hard and the other road for you was something where you could help humanity, become a doctor, a lawyer, you know, an engineer and fixing things for people, or, you know, building houses or whatever it may be, something really useful to humanity, and you've wasted yourself on the brain rot, stupid TikTok videos, and you're now that person who's just, you know, cleaning the windows of, you know, a retail store or whatever. That's a real shame. That's a real shame. And that person, the worst part about this all is that person will regret it. And it's too late. You know, when you're like 23, 24 years old and you're cleaning that window going, oh my God, I should have just studied harder in high school. And I could have been the guy who's just walked past me with a suit on, taking phone calls about a $2 million project they're about to build. I could have been that guy.
Time's passed now.
Time's passed, you know. Don't waste your time. Take the opportunity now. Graft now, and then you can relax later. When you've got that job and you're an engineer or a lawyer, a doctor, and you're working hard, you can take downtime. I take downtime occasionally, not very frequently, but I do. You know, but you can afford to do that because now you've got a career, you've got an income, you've got your respect. You know what you need to do to help your fellow brothers and sisters, the community. You've got all that in check already. So you can choose when to bring that in and out. But if you don't have that in place, you don't have the option.
Correct, yeah. I've always wanted to know, obviously, becoming a doctor is no easy feat, It's a long road, and everyone, it's quite common. It's known, Were there times you had dealt, and what was that like sort of thing where it's like, there's a light at the end of the tunnel for me? You know, there was times where you could have taken the easier route, you know?
Oh, multiple times. God, multiple times. As you probably would have heard on the podcast that I did with the Safi brothers, there were so many times in my life where the doors felt like they were closed, really, truly felt like they were closed. And I could have every single time gone, all right, well, what's the alternative here? And I didn't, and I pushed and I pursued and I pushed and I pursued. And and you know what? I may never have got to where I've got to now, but at least I would have tried. And look, if I didn't try, I wouldn't be here. So without trying, you don't know. You know, they're like they say, you don't know if you don't ask. You know, oh, can you give me a free bottle of water, brother? Well, I might sit here and go, oh, I better not ask him that. You know, I don't know. Maybe he hasn't got the water. Maybe he doesn't want to give it to me. Maybe he doesn't like me. You know, I could sit here and think about it all day. That this guy, all I could do is just go, can I have the bottle of water? And you'll say yes or no. And then I got a choice to make after that. If you turn around to me and say, no, you can't have that bottle of water, I've got a choice. I can either go, okay, thank you, and stop. So, you know, I've already had the first defeat and stop. Or I can then continue again and go, okay, well, can I ask you why I can't have that bottle of water? Push. Maybe you say to me, you can't have the bottle of water because you're ugly. Okay. Well,
I'll work on it.
Well, I'm sorry. I can work on that. Do you want me to put a bit of makeup on? I can come back with some makeup. Do you want me to dress nicer? But I really want that bottle of water. So I'll just keep pushing. Until you know what you think will happen. You might go to me, you know what, man? You can have that bottle of water. So you see, I started off with wanting something right at the beginning. And it took me 3 or 4 attempts, but I got it in the end. All right. There was 3 opportunities along that way for me to go, oh, actually, I'll just drop it. I won't bother with that bottle of water. But I didn't. I really want that bottle of water, so I will keep pushing. So tell me, so why? Can I have it? What can I do to get it? You know, and there's so many things you can do. And it's the same with anything in life. When the door closes, don't stop there. Okay, well, what are my other options? How can I go around this? Who closed that door on me? Maybe I could speak to that person. What do I need to do for that door to reopen? And you keep pushing and you're pushing. And again, we're losing that, you know, that will and that instinct and to do that. You know, it's very easy for us now to just go, okay, don't worry about it. You know, and that's really not good because you don't know unless you ask.
Correct. That motivation factor. This guy loves Alex Hormozi. He has a quote I've seen recently, something along those lines, where it's like a motivated person doesn't like sort of take no for an answer. They just find a million different other ways to do it. Or it's like the other way you can look at it is a motivated person will find multiple ways at getting to that one road rather than being like, okay, cool, I didn't get it, cool, you know, moving on from there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and honestly, I would say this to any young person listening out there: try it. Just try it. The next time you really want something, you know, as long as it's legal and respectful, next time you really want something, just try really pushing for it. Want it from here. Want it from your heart. Really want it, and go, all right, well, I'm going to pursue it. I'm going to try it. And if I don't get it from this avenue, I'll try another avenue, or I'll pursue it in another way, or I'll ask again, or I'll push for it again, or I'll try asking another person, or I'll just work harder till I get it, or okay, I'll find out what it is I need to do to then get to that stage to get whatever it is I want. But the point is, you're pushing, you're trying, you're asking, you're pushing, you're trying, you're asking, rather than just go, oh, okay, well, I just can't have that. And it's very easy. That's the easiest thing to do as humans, to go, okay, that's fine. But no, why? Push, keep asking, trying.
Definitely. The resilience isn't there anymore. So
you've got, that's probably the key word of this whole thing. It's resilience. We used to, I don't know if they say this anymore, but like, when we were growing up, the older people used to go, grow a backbone, grow a backbone. And imagine that's them telling us. Imagine now we're saying to you guys ain't even got a backbone, man. I'm sorry.
We got half of one.
No, you got half of one. Yeah, you're kind of like a bit floppy. And
they say it differently in Australia. What do they say? Grow a pair or something?
Yeah.
We're acting like you ain't lived the all your life. This guy's like asking me. I'm not confirmed.
Yeah, but whichever way you say it, what you need to do is just grow resilience, and anyone can do that. We're not asking you to suddenly develop a skill. If I said to you, learn to knit me this carpet, this rug. It's like, okay, well, I don't know. I haven't got the machine. I haven't got the skills. I need to go to China where they make. I'm not just resilience. Just learn resilience. Everybody's got that inside. You just need to bring it out. You just need to have a little bit more oomph. A little bit more drive. And just pursue your dreams and just push and push and push. And if you don't get to your dream, at least you'll get very close to it. But you've got to keep trying.
I think a lot of people's main hurdle in those situations where they hear no the first time, beyond resilience, would be like their ego. When someone's ego takes a hit.
So there is no room for ego, especially as Muslims, of course. There is no room for ego or pride. No room for ego or pride. And I was telling a friend of mine actually recently about this, and this person takes offense to things very quickly and is quick to go, I'm not doing this anymore. But we're doing a charity event for Palestine, for example. But this person's annoyed me, I'm not doing this more. Well, but let's look at the bigger picture here. Okay, that person might be annoying, whether I agree or not, but it doesn't matter. Your focus in life at this point in time is this charity event. You're doing something amazing. You're about to raise money for people who need it, who are in need of it, who are desperate for it. Why would you let one person throw that off just because of your pride? Because they said, I don't know, I don't like your clothes, or I don't like the way you look, or I don't like the way you spoke, or whatever it may be. All right, sure. Who cares? Yeah. Duck over a water's back. Water over a duck's back even. You've got to pick your battles. You've got to also decide when you're going to let something like that annoy you. If you're focused in something, people will say offensive things. People will upset you. That's human nature. We all have different opinions. We all have different views, and we all have different styles. So I might say something to you, and in my way, in my brain, in my style, I'm not saying that offensively. I'm just saying, I'm saying it maybe as a joke or it's just whatever. Yeah. And if you take offense to that, I've now thrown you off your path. Why? Your path might be you're doing this charity event. Don't let somebody throw you off your path.
Exactly. So there's a funny story. I always use this as like an example, or like it really helped me kind of like gather my brain when situations like that occurred. I went to Bunnings with my uncle. And there was this really racist white guy. He was working at Bunnings, and he's like, he needs like a nice chunk of plywood cut and put it in the back of his van. And this is what he drives in with the van. The racist white guy looks at him and goes, wait over there, mate, like that, like very aggressively. And then my uncle, I looked at him and I go, like, my uncle's 6'5", mashallah, like big, strong. I'm like, yeah. Well, I don't know whether genetics. I looked at him. I'm like, surely my uncle's going to say something to give it to his life to teach this racist guy a lesson. That's how Lebos think, yeah? And then we pull up. My uncle's like, my apologies, mate. I know you probably had a rough day. You probably dealt with a bunch of idiots. He's like, can I just get this plywood cut? Took the guy off guard. The guy's like, what the hell? Like, what just happened? He's like, oh, yeah, mate, no worries. Just pull it around the side. They usually don't load it for you.
Absolutely.
Cut it. loaded it for him. Have a good day. My uncle's like, yalla, I got what I wanted and I moved on.
Yeah.
See, that's a great story. And I actually run a lot of my life that way. You know, when people approach you and they're not as nice as you want them to be, they're a bit aggressive, they might come across as being whatever, upset, racist, whatever you want to call them. And they might not be racist. You know, what I'm saying is, if they're having a bad day, you know, give them that excuse in your mind. Don't just suddenly go, don't you dare talk to me like that, or I could break your leg, or whatever it is, you know, I'm going to bust your kneecaps, you know. Stop and take the opportunity. That person might be having a really bad day. They may have come to work that day and they've left their kid at home with no food, or, you know, or the house is leaking and they can't afford to do whatever their problem may be, you know, give them that time. And it just takes a few nice words, you know, rather than, I could go straight aggressive to that guy and, you know, but he chose not to. And he said, you know what? I know you're having a bad day. Sometimes even a little human touch. I'm sorry that, you know, this is stressful for you at the moment, but is there any chance you can help me? I need a bit of help, and, you know, and turn it around. And suddenly that person's having a bad day, but just because of you being a bit more human and pleasant with them, they will change.
Correct. Yeah.
So important. So important. We're, you know, again, you know, a lot of the youth of today, you just say one thing to them and they blow up in your face. You know, stop and just, you know, be a bit more diplomatic, be a bit more human, be a bit more understanding. Again, interesting Islamic concepts, you know. That's how our religion teaches us to be. Our religion doesn't teach us to go and start, you know, going crazy at people and bashing them about. Give them an opportunity to talk to them. Make sure they're okay. Maybe they're not okay. Maybe they actually want your help, rather than you asking for their help.
More times than not, it's not about you. Talking about bad days, hard days. Yeah, I've always wanted to know, what's the hardest day you've had as a neurosurgeon?
With any surgery, with anything in medicine, not everything goes your way, of course, and everyone has good days and bad days. That's why we consent people for, you know, complications and whatever. And, you know, of course, there are days when things go bad. Now, I'm grateful, alhamdulillah, in so many years of practicing, you know, I can almost count them on my hand, the number of, you know, really bad days I've had. I can't say if anybody, you know, die on the table, but in terms of bad outcomes or complications that happen, I've had a few, and they live with you, those complications, you know, they really live with you and they affect you, and you know, you go home and all you're thinking, oh my God, and have I caused that person harm, and are they going to be able to walk again, and, you know, is that weakness going to resolve, and whatever. So you do live with a lot of personal guilt for how those outcomes are. And sometimes they're not even your fault as a surgeon. They could have happened in anybody's hands. You're taking a big brain tumor out of someone's head and they wake up with some weakness on one side. But you still wear that guilt as a surgeon, if you're an empathetic surgeon anyway. But you wear that guilt and you wear it for a while, for a long time. You know, and I remember there was this one, probably one of the worst outcomes I've had was very early on. So when I first came to Australia, I was, in fact, before I became a consultant, I was what's called a fellow. And I remember taking out a tumor in the back of this guy's head, and it was a complex tumor. And he woke up and he lost his ability to swallow completely. So now it meant this guy had to be peg fed, you know, when they put one of those tubes in their tummy. And that devastated me. I was like, you know, okay, he's got a brain tumor and I didn't give him the brain tumor, but it doesn't matter. I've caused him this harm. You know, by taking the brain tumor out, I've now stopped him from being able to taste nice food and swallow and eat like the rest of us. And that really upset me for a long period of time, you know. And so these horrible events that happen to you as a surgeon happen to every surgeon in every specialty. But what you hope for is that they're few and far between, you know. If they're happening to you once or twice a year, that's, you know, and you're operating a lot, then that's probably not a bad thing. But if you're getting those complications, obviously, like on a weekly or monthly basis, you know, then maybe you need to sort of, you know, re-review yourself or get somebody, a colleague, to sort of go, hey, am I doing the right thing here? Because this is not good. But yeah, these things will always affect every surgeon.
And I'm guessing you're going to have to learn to compartmentalize as well. You know, like that happened there.
You do.
And then there's another surgery that's going to happen and I have to perform now.
Absolutely. Okay? And that's actually a really good point. The worst is if you're doing, say, 2 or 3 operations a day and you have a bad complication with the very first one. You've now got to gather yourself, gather your emotions, gather your thoughts, gather your, you know, your composure to then get on with the other two, because you don't want to affect the other two operations. You know, you've got to just go, okay, I've got to compartmentalize and move on and do good with the next one or two operations.
Do you have a way you compartmentalize, by the way? Like, as in, is it active? Is it passive? Is it like a...
Do you pray? Or
like, yeah.
I do. So I always say, like, you know, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, you know, in the name of God, before every operation. And I also understand that, you know, when these bad things do happen, even though I do blame myself, I know in the back of my mind that it's God's will. You know, if God didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't have happened. And, you know, so I sort of tell myself that, but I still blame myself, of course, always. And, you know, I'm the surgeon, etc. It's my fault. But I do tell myself, like, it's God's will. And I think the religious side does kick in, and that helps you get through it, of course.
So I think we're going to switch gears now. Is that right?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
I think
Talking about football or?
No. I think there's a far more important topic, subhanAllah. And we see in the news now, subhanAllah. And it's been going on for at least almost 3 years now, subhanAllah. And I know that we're probably short on time, but I think it'll be very important to mention or to speak about your work with PANSMA over in Gaza. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for our brothers and sisters over there. Just give us a run through of what you did when you went over to Gaza in your stint.
Look, in a nutshell, I've been asked a couple of times in the last, 18 months or whatever it was, to go. And I've also been asking them if I can go. But it's never really worked out or aligned from a timing point of view. Also, there was certain rules, like you had to go for a month, and I can't spare a month. And then when I decided I wanted to go at one point, they were like, oh no, we don't need neurosurgeons now. They were very specific about wanting like orthopedic surgeons and trauma surgeons, and, for all the right reasons. So it just, nothing really aligned. And, again, as Muslims, we believe, that's Allah's will. That's just the way it is. Like, for example, at the moment, we just had a mission that went in a few days ago with a neurosurgery colleague of mine who's Jordanian, who was about to go in, and on the morning that he was about to enter, he got really bad gastroenteritis, had to go into hospital himself for gastro. So that's it. He's missed his calling to go in. Wow. God's will.
And look what's happened.
Just wasn't meant for him to go in. Mm-hmm. So the same thing. It wasn't meant for me either. And then beginning of February, I get this call on a Sunday night saying that the WHO have approved for a neurosurgeon specifically, and they're okay for you to go in for 2 weeks. So everything aligned. Now, they want a neurosurgeon. They've actually specifically asked for one, and they're happy to have 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh, wow, this has really worked out. And they go, however, the entry date is in 12 days' time. And I'm like, what? I'm like booked up for months as a surgeon. I've got surgeries and clinics. And they're like, well, that's what it is. You've got to go in 12 days. And like, I was like, you know what? Let me see if it works out. I'll know if God wants me to go, because things align. My life's always been like that. I'm very, very grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when I know that something should happen, things just go in that direction very smoothly. And when something's not supposed to happen, it just doesn't work out, And so I thought, okay, let's see how the next 24, 48 hours goes. I go to work and like they need 6 weeks notice. This is the public hospital. And they were like, no, you can go. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, you can go. And I'm like, damn, man, this is really like, that's scary, And then like a few other things happen. I'm ringing my private secretaries. And I'm like, hey, you guys, I've got all these surgeries books and clinics. There's no way you can move this stuff around. No, you do what you need to do. We can work it around. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah. I'm like, this is this is meant to be, My wife wouldn't agree, by the way. She was like, no, you ain't going.
Yeah. How did you convince the family?
Oh, that was really hard. Really hard.
And plus, it's not like going on any other trip. You're going to
war zone. It's a war zone.
Yeah.
Look, the truth is, I don't think I ever convinced them. I think I kind of just did it. So yeah, I never really convinced them. But they were just like, okay, if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. But they were never really happy in their hearts. Of course, they're happy for me to do and help people, but they understood that the significant risk this was to my own life, and so from that point of view, they weren't happy, of course. Yeah. But anyway, the bottom line is everything aligned, and I just kind of just did it. And next thing I know, like 10, 12 days later, I've got all this stuff that was donated, crazy amounts of personal equipment for surgeries, of course. And then that was it. I went to Amman.
High-tech equipment.
Yeah. And then speaking of resilience, I get to Amman, because the way it goes is that you got to get all these people to tick off you going into Gaza. So Ministry of Health of the Palestinian Ministry of Health got to say yes. WHO have got to say yes. United Nations have got to say yes. Can't remember. There's all these other little organizations that have got to say yes. And then the final tick box is by the Israeli government. But you only get that tick box the night before you go in. So you got to be in Amman, Jordan, waiting until you get the green light. Then you go in the next morning at 6 a.m. And you get the green light usually about 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. the night before. So it's like literally hours before. And so I got there and I didn't get the green light. And I was devastated. I'm like, I've done all this stuff and I've changed all my whole life around and I've got all this equipment and how can I not go in? And I didn't give up. And I was like, nah, I'm going to try again on the Tuesday. And they're like, yeah, you've got an opportunity because you've not been given a red light. You've just been given like we're not sure about you. So I was like, no, okay, well, let me try again. So I came back on the Tuesday, hung around. I came back on the Tuesday and then I got the green light and then I went in and I was in for 2 weeks. It was intense. I mean, I was fortunate. I was there when it was ceasefire. So it wasn't like crazy bad. I mean, like I say, there was lots of gunfire and you still hear all the artillery and stuff going on. And people still coming in with trauma and gunshots. But it wasn't as crazy as the bombing, of course. But it was still intense. But look, I went there. I was very grateful for the opportunity. Managed to help quite a lot of people, which I'm, again, very grateful for. And it was an experience.
Can I ask the logistics? So you're going to obviously like an active war zone, genocide, and then you're going there for 2 weeks. And obviously you're coming from a place, Australia, obviously there's plans, there's 6 weeks booking, there's whatever, cool. What's like your first plan of attack when you go there? You know what I mean? Like you're saying this and then that.
Great question. So for me as a surgeon, my first thought process is, what have you got? And what can I do with what you've got? And who's already on the ground doing that, So I go there and it's like, okay, well, first thing I need to know is which hospital am I going to? Do they have neurosurgeons there? What's their skill level like? What do they, if there is a neurosurgeon there, what do they want me to do? Do they want me to do something that they can't do? Or do they want me just to relieve them because they're so exhausted they want some time? I don't know. I don't know any of this stuff. It's not all clear. And so for me, I got taken to the hospital called the European Gaza. I don't know if you guys follow the news, but it's the one that's recently just been taken over. So that's like a no-go now. But anyway, and I go there. So I'm like, show me your operating theatres. I met the team there. There were 2 main neurosurgeons working there with a team of younger neurosurgeons. I'm like, okay, well, I sat them down. I'm like, look, man, I'm not here to be like a smart ass. You tell me what you want. Do you want me to support you? Is there stuff that you can't do that you want me to teach you? If I can do it myself, what do you need? Do you just want me to come here just for the equipment? Well, here you go. I can show you how to use that. What do you want? I'm just here to help you. And they were very graceful and they were really lovely people. And we ended up doing a bit of everything. So we ended up doing some operations that they not really trained to do. And so I was training them to do it. We ended up doing some basic operations that they can do, but I was just showing them, okay, well, maybe this is an alternative way to do it. I was obviously bringing all this equipment in, showing them the equipment that I've brought and how some of it works, etc. Also trying to relieve them sometimes, like, oh, I'll go and do this operation if you want to take a break, and so it was actually a bit of everything. Ended up being a bit of everything, and it was great.
Sure. I actually wanted to ask you, so you would have seen a lot in that time that you were there.
I saw a fair bit, yeah.
Did anything stick with you? The most?
Oh, there was I mean, honestly, again, the stories are crazy. I saw literally in that time, I saw hundreds of patients. We didn't operate on that many, of course, because you see them as a clinic type basis, and you operate on a small number of them. But I saw hundreds of patients, and some of the stories they tell you are just, and these guys, they're not telling you for you to feel sorry for them. They're just telling you as a matter of fact, like, oh, this is the fact, so can we work around this fact? Like this one guy, young patient who'd come all the way from the north. So the European Gaza is in the south. And, they don't have transportation like we do. So to get from north to the south is crazy for them, like, donkey carts and whatever. Anyway, it took this guy like 4 hours to come to see me because he'd heard there was a Western neurosurgeon here and he wanted an opinion. So he'd come down. Taking forward, and he was a younger guy, I don't know, maybe early 30s from memory, something like that, quite young. And he had a crutch. He was walking with a crutch, and he had a shrapnel injury to his spine. So he's got these little bullets in his spine, and he was walking, but obviously walking with a crutch, and he had some bladder disturbances, and some of the stuff down below wasn't functioning very well, etc. Anyway, and obviously his leg wasn't working very well. That's why he was using the crutch. And he'd come to ask if there's something I could do to make that better for him. Can I make his situation any better? And in the process of just talking, like, it was only when I almost forced it out of him, I was trying to say, look, you're not bad, you're pretty functioning, and I don't think I can make you any better than you are, and the damage is kind of done, but you're pretty good. Like, how do you want me to make you any better than you are? Like, you're walking, you're still able to use the toilet, you're okay. Like, how do you want me to make you better? And then it was only when I pushed him, he said, oh, well, what it is I'm looking after, I can't remember the exact number now. I don't want to lie, but it was like 24 kids or something like that. It was an extortionate number of children. And I was like, sorry, I don't understand. And he's like, I'm looking after these 24 kids because these are my nieces and nephews he had multiple brothers and sisters who were all killed, all of them, in the bombing. And I think his own wife was killed. And so he's ended up in this tiny little apartment, from what it sounded like, with his mother. So him and his mother and all these kids. So between him and his elderly mother, and he's obviously, partly a cripple, they're looking after these 24 kids. And I didn't even want to go into what ages they were. I don't know if they're like babies or really young or old. I don't know, but they were kids, and there was 20 odd something of them. And I was like, oh my God, wow. And he was just like, yeah, I just want to make sure I'm in as best condition as I can be so I can look after these kids. And he just said it as a matter of fact. And you stop and you go, oh my God, like, I'm worried when, like, oh my God, I can't take my son to a soccer game and, whatever, one little thing. This guy's looking after 24 kids, and he's got to make sure they're all fed and they're all safe and they're all looked after and they're all getting love and attention and care and blah and blah and blah. And I was just like, well, I don't think I can make you any better. And he was like, thank you very much. Shook my hand, got up and started his 4-hour journey back to look after his kids. Yeah, so that's just one story of load stories. And some of the doctors, the stories they were telling me, like when things were really bad, like, they'd have one like pita bread type thing, one, round lebo bread, I guess you call it here. But he had one piece of bread he was demonstrating, and he goes, there were days when this one piece of bread had to serve a whole family for the whole day. So that's all you got hold of is one piece of bread. And it's like you have to share it with your kids and your wife, and you go, okay, that's what you've got for the day. So if you want to eat a little bit now, eat a little bit later on, eat a little bit before you go to bed, we've got one loaf of bread that we've now broken into 4 or 5 pieces. That's your food for the 24 hours until we decide we can get some more food tomorrow or not.
And the whole family's having that.
Yeah, and that's a doctor telling me this, like a senior doctor. And he goes, that was very normal. And sounded like he was one of the fortunate ones, being a professional, that he was probably able to get hold of a loaf of bread. Some people, clearly, as we can see from what's happening in the media, some families are just not getting the food at all, zero, which is why you're seeing all these kids with these extraordinarily, malnourished bodies.
Were you able to go outside the hospital and
I was, yeah.
Gaza?
So the charities that you go with, so whether it's Pansama or whatever, they encourage you not to go outside, and understandably for security and safety reasons. But look, I've managed to kind of sneak a few visits into the streets just because I wanted to see what the sort of markets were like. And when I say markets, these are like makeshift kind of little huts that have been put up, obviously, because most things are bombed. So I wanted to see the locals, see what they were selling, what kind of prices, just get a feel for the area. And sometimes anyway, I had to walk between the safe house I was in to the hospital that was nearby. When I had to go to this other hospital, that was a walking distance one. So I was out a couple of times, and then Friday prayers at the mosques. I got, I was blessed to be able to walk to a local mosque. But yeah, you see the destruction in the streets. You see the just complete, doomsday look of the country, in terms of the landscape. But people are walking around it, and, people, you can hear them, they're talking to the kids like normal, come on, let's go here and let's go and buy this and let's go and do this. And they're just getting on with life, they have to, and they're just getting on with life. And
did it look like how you imagined it to look? Like how we see it in
I don't think anything can prepare you for that kind of look until you see it with your own eyes. You can see it all you like. And I remember when I used to see it on the videos of some of my colleagues who came back, and I used to be like, oh my God, it looks crazy. It looks like there's all this destruction, but you don't really appreciate it until you see it with your own eyes. You're like, oh my God, like that whole building that was X high with all this concrete is just nothing. And you can see the slabs, you can see how it's just, when you see it with your own eyes, you just kind of look and look at and you're just trying to understand and go, that's mad. Like, that's just crazy. This thing's just flattened. And not just this one building, there's a whole load of them, you know, and it just, it's really, nothing prepares you for seeing that until you see it.
Yeah. And go.
What would you say the biggest thing is that you've learned from the people of Gaza?
Resilience. No question. Their resilience is just remarkable. These people, it's like you know, there was a comedian, an Egyptian heart surgeon comedian, I can't remember his name now, but yeah. Yeah, and he joked, he's a heart surgeon, by the way. Yeah. But he left that to do comedy.
To do comedy.
Yeah. And he's Egyptian too. Yeah. Maybe I should do comedy as well. I think he makes a lot more money than me. Maybe I should. But you know, he one of his kind of semi jokes. He wasn't joking, of course, but you know, he sort of made it into a joke. Was when he, I think he was talking to Piers Morgan, and he said, you know, you can't kill these people. You know, you just can't kill them. And is almost right. Like, they just get up and go. They just get up and go and get up and go. You know, you kill 5, 10 of them. The remaining ones get up and they dust off and they move on, you know. And you're like, why are you not sad? Well, yeah, we are kind of sad, but that's Allah's will. Allah's written that for us and we understand that and we move on. Their faith is so strong. So not just resilience. The other thing I would say is that their faith is remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. I've never seen faith like that. You know, anything you say, oh, I'm sorry, you know, I'm operating on your child and your child's no good, or you know, your child could die. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. All Allah's will. All praise to God. You know, that's all they're like. They're just remarkable people. Strong faith, strong resilience. They know that they just have to get up and go. They know that Allah's written this journey for them, whatever journey that they're on, and they just get on with it.
Because they've seen it all at this point.
They've seen it all. You know? Although speaking to them, they're like, look, you know, we're so used to wars. You know, every time there's little wars. And they go, this one was different. Yeah. They go, you know, this is an older person I was talking to, like a guy in his 60s. And he goes, this is the first one where we realize now all these other little wars weren't really nothing. They were nothing. This was the big one.
And did you have security when you were traveling around Gaza, or you just...
I had my hoodie.
And then the hat, I'm guessing, as well.
Yeah, hoodie and a hat. Sorry. Yeah, that's it. No helmet. No helmet. No. No, when I was on a bus, this is the bus taking me in. So you can imagine I'm going into a war zone. So I'm driving through sort of, you know, occupied land and, you know, Israel land, and going down to Rafah. So you got to go through Jordan, through Israel into Rafah. And I'm on this bus and I'm like, okay, you know, sort of what to expect. You're thinking about it. And as we're getting close to the Rafah, the entry, you know, everything goes quiet and it's that eerie quietness. And anyway, and then I see the bus driver, grab this thing I look next to him and it's a motorbike helmet, like just a motorbike helmet. Yeah. And he grabs a motorbike helmet and I'm like, oh crap, what have I got myself into here? You know what I mean? This guy's got my and then I turn around, look at the rest of the bus, and you know, because they're all from like fancy charities, you know, like MSF, Medicine Sans Frontier, and so they've all starting to put their bulletproof vests on, literally bulletproof vests on, you know, the hard hats, you know, with the little whatever. I'm turning and I'm like, do no one tell me about this? Someone's left me out here, man. That's like some serious, like, you know, brown crime here. But you know what? You just go, alhamdulillah, it is what it is, man. It's just, you know, again, if you really are a true believer, if God wants you to die, you will die. If God wants you to survive, he'll survive. Look at the plane crash the other day, the Indian plane crash.
The Indian one, yeah.
The one survivor.
11A.
Not only was he a survivor, the guy walked out. How do you walk out of a plane crash like that when everybody else is dead and you walk out? Yeah. Now, if that's not God wanting that person to live, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
With just scratches as well.
The guy walked out with scratches and he's talking. Yeah. He's like this. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what seat he sat in because like, that's right, 11A. But no, I mean, that really is a true, you know, that's God not wanting that person to die for whatever reason. And we don't understand it. We never will understand it. The person himself clearly wouldn't understand it. And the families of all the, you know, people who've perished, which is awful, wouldn't understand it. But it's God's will. One person survived, everybody else died.
Everyone.
And so if God wants you to die, it will happen. If God wants you to survive, nothing will kill you. So I'm a big believer in that. I mean, obviously you take your precautions. So I'm not saying go out and run in the street in the middle of the motorway and, play Frogger with all the buses going past. But, but within reason, you take your precautions and the rest you leave it to God.
100%. Do you plan to go back to Gaza, you said?
I do.
Yeah.
Inshallah. I do, inshallah. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Make it easy for you.
Yeah, we're trying to raise money at the moment. So there's a few fundraisers coming up. And we're going to try and buy some fancy equipment for them to use there to help people. So
is this through Panzima?
Through Panzima.
Through Panzima, yeah. Maybe we'll chuck a link down below and stuff.
No,
see this episode, maybe you can go donate and stuff like
Click
that.
Click on the link below.
That's right. 100%.
You better. But I think the one question I would ask, did you ever feel hopeless when you were there?
Oh, of course. Undoubtedly. There's lots of times where you go, I wish I could do more, and I'm restricted by the equipment, what's happening, the nature of it all, and I can't do this operation for you because there's no radiotherapy here, so there's no point in me trying to fix this cancer because you can't have treatment for it, etc., 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 etc. So there's a lot of times where you feel hopeless. But again, compartmentalizing, you can't let things upset you. It's God's will. You got to just go, okay, well, I can't help that one person. I'll be compassionate, at least. I'll be very compassionate, but then I've got to move on and see if I can help the next person and the next person.
Definitely.
One final question. We always ask our guests these questions. What advice would you give to the younger Mohammed Awad?
Keep striving, resilience, keep pushing, keep working hard. Don't learn to be lazy. It's okay to mess around a little bit. It's okay to have fun. So, but you've got to look at the bigger picture. And I say this to everybody out there, you've got to look at the bigger picture. What's the bigger picture here? To be someone who's a good person, a great person who can help humanity, who's got a job or a career where you're helping people for the better good. Be the best that you can be. And the only way you will do that is that hard grafting from when you're young through to about your mid-20s. That's the time when you graft. After that, it's too late. You've got a small window, and in the grand scheme of things of life, that's a small window. Take the opportunity. I almost didn't, and then I did, and look where I am. I almost didn't. So don't let that be you. Put the hard yards in. Be that better person. You'll get there.
We love that. Thank you very much for your time. Jazakallah khair.
Thanks, boys.
You guys know the drill. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and keep grafting.
The link.
The link. And the link.
You
Don't
better
forget the
donate.
link as well. Panzima, support the next cause. You guys know the drill, inshallah. Any final words?
Thank you all for listening. Thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate it, gents. I hope it's going to be useful for somebody one day. And keep doing what you're doing, because you change one person's life, that one person might be the next Muslim Elon Musk, changing a lot of lives. You never know. So it just takes one person.
Or the next neurosurgeon. Who
or
knows,
the next neurosurgeon. Yeah.
Stop the brain rot. Get up, man. We'll see you guys next week, inshallah. Peace.